This is the Water Quality Association podcast, promoting the betterment of water quality around the world. And hello, I'm your host, Wes Bleed.
Sometimes it has to do with a particular problem they're having out in the field, where they'll say to us, I'm working at this customer's home. I've got this really unusual situation. Can you help? And sometimes we are able to, but sometimes the answer will come from another student in the class.
That's Paul Friot, one of the instructors in WQA's instructor-led training programs, talking about the value of those online courses. And welcome to the weekly podcast from the Water Quality Association, the leading voice of the residential, commercial, and industrial water treatment community. You can find us at WQA.org. If you're joining us for the first time, we're so glad you're here. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a show. That's the magic of podcasting. And be sure to share the podcast with someone on your team. We also feature our podcasts on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/@waterqualityassociationvideos. Well, it is back to school time for many of our families with kids, but it's also back to school for water treatment professionals looking to up their game when it comes to offering customers water treatment solutions. We're joined by John McCartan of WQA and Paul Friot with GetWaterAnswers.com. Together they explain the ABCs of WQA's training and how the courses are designed and how the courses can lead to certification. We even feature a segment from a recent class to give you a taste of what you'll learn. Later, we'll have our WQA tip, all coming up on the Water Quality Association podcast. Well, it is back to school time for many of us with kids or grandkids, and it's also back to school, believe it or not, for many of us in the water treatment industry as we look at our professional careers. And, whether you're looking to grow your confidence and skill in diagnosing water problems, or you're trying to work toward one of our many professional certifications, WQA has a number of training courses and programs and classes, and many of them live, online, that can meet your needs. And we wanted to talk about that today. We wanted to talk about the program and also kind of go behind the scenes and find out a little bit more about how it all works. And so with me today on the podcast are John McCartan, who is the training and program manager at WQA. John, welcome.
Thanks, Wes.
And we also have one of our instructors, Paul Friot, with GetWaterAnswers.com. Paul is, as I said, one of our instructors, and he is a master water specialist, certified installer, certified surface technician, and certified water specialist. So, Paul, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Wes. Nice to see you.
All right. Hey, Paul. Let's start with just the programs in general. Why are we offering these programs? John, let me start with you on that one. Why does WQA have a training program and department in the first place?
Well, it all goes back to the WQA's mission statement. We're trying to better the water quality improvement industry. And there's no better way, in my opinion, of doing that than making sure that our dealers and our members are well-educated, well-trained, and ultimately certified.
And Paul, how does that square with what your background has been as well and your experience with the programs?
Well, when we had our dealership, which we had for about 45 years, my father and I believe strongly in getting certified. And I can't remember when I was first certified. I think it was either in the late 70s, maybe around 1980, started getting certified. And my feeling was the more certifications, the better. It certainly doesn't mean I know everything there is to know. I certainly do not. But it's an indicator, I think, to people with whom I interact that I'm making a commitment to the industry and trying to have a certain level of professionalism that I think benefits everyone involved.
Right. And I know, John, you've got a number of levels of certification. We could touch on those, maybe just quickly, and then also explain how does one go about getting certified?
Absolutely. Thanks, Wes. Great question. So you might notice Paul has an MWS title, the Master Water Specialist title. That's our only advanced level certification. It requires you first to be a certified water specialist before you take additional coursework and get the master water specialist. Now, how do you get the certified water specialist? There's a series of 3 courses, the first of which is assessing water quality problems. The second focuses on application and sizing for aesthetic contaminants. And the third focuses on much the same, but for drinking water or health contaminants this time around. We also have our certified service technician, certified water treatment representative, and certified installer trainings. Some of those utilize the same classes. Certified installer has its own course series. But ultimately, you take the courses, take the test, and get your certification.
And Paul, what was it like getting all of these certifications? You mentioned you were certainly convinced of the value, but you had to go through and do all the work.
Right. When after most of the certifications was before it was done online. So you'd buy books, you'd read the book. And at that point, pretty much I was doing the testing at the annual convention. I would take the exam at the convention. And certainly that's changed. That whole structure has changed significantly. I've done one certification more recently that was certified service tech, and that I did online. And it worked it was much more convenient. The testing itself I was able to do at home. I just needed to scan the room with the computer so that you could demonstrate there weren't people standing in the background feeding me answers and so forth. So, yeah, it worked really well. It made it very convenient.
Well, there's a little bit of irony in there, isn't there? You were all on your own at the time you were getting your certifications, and now you are an instructor helping people get their certification. You're actually being that person who is the assistant, the person who comes alongside of the individual and says, "Here, I'll help you out."
I wish I had that option at the time. It is helpful to have someone you can turn to, and I'm not the only instructor. I mean, you've got Cliff Faustinot and Peter Cartwright, but it's really helpful, I think, for any student who's involved with the class to be able to canvass any of us if they have questions about what we've just covered or prior classes or whatever it might be. At the end of each class, and in many ways, I think students find the end of each class to be the most interesting part because we stay on, the instructors will stay on and answer questions pretty much as long as it takes. And just go through things with students.
Just like you'd hang around the desk in the classroom.
So but it's more informal. Okay. It's more relaxed.
Yeah. Well, let me stay with you, Paul, on this. And how does the content get created? Are you kind of thinking in terms of what you feel they need to know, or is there a standard, if you will, that you're teaching to?
I would say there's a bit of a blueprint to start with. That each of us as an instructor, we were supplied with the basics of here is what we want to convey. And then we went and created PowerPoint presentations for the details. But we're not just doing this subjectively as to what we think is important. There's also dialogue. I mean, talking with John, talking with Tanya, canvassing them to say, are we satisfying what you want? And maybe we could tweak something here. And we do. Each time we teach the course, potentially we do slight revisions or updating depending upon how we think things are going.
Yeah, and Tanya, that Paul referred to is Tanya Lubner, our professional certification and training director, and is ultimately the one in charge of making sure it all works and comes together. But John, so tell me, again, we're talking about increasing one's knowledge of water and water treatment and water solutions. Oh, certainly the customer gets a certain level of confidence in the individual in their home performing the duties. What does the dealer, the owner, manager get back at the office with the certification?
Great question, Wes. Hopefully that same confidence in either themselves or their employee who got certified, the same confidence that consumer now has in them, hopefully their manager now has as well. Another thing is an increased level of engagement with the industry. Certified professionals tend to stay in the industry. They tend to say, okay, this is where I am now. This is a career. I've arrived. I'm growing in my career.
Oh, that's great. And Paul, anything to add to that? And or if you want to jump over to manufacturers and what they would value as well, because I think I can just imagine somebody listening to this or watching and saying, well, that's okay. That's great. That's for dealers. But I'm in the manufacturing sector, so that's not really for me. But that's not the case, right?
I do believe there's value for manufacturers as well as dealers, because it puts them in touch with the folks that are on the front line, and they get to see, based on what we're teaching and also the students that are in the class that are dealers and interacting with them, what's going on with the end user or the dealer that's installing the system and some of the material that's being presented. And sometimes if it's your manufacturer you're dealing with, like let's say, for example, it's a manufacturer of an ultraviolet light system, they have an opportunity to see the other types of treatment, it's pre-treatment for their equipment, and have a better understanding of how those systems function, because everything dovetails. So I think it can be beneficial for them as well.
All right. Paul, you mentioned before that the value, or one of the elements is so valuable, are the time answering questions. So what are some of the questions that you're hearing these days when you teach the class?
Well, it's a combination of questions regarding the material that we just finished presenting. That would be the highest percentage of questions are related to what either Peter or I just covered or Cliff just covered in the class. Sometimes it has to do with a particular problem they're having out in the field, where they'll say to us, I'm working at this customer's home. I've got this really unusual situation. Can you help? And sometimes we are able to, but sometimes the answer will come from another student in the class. Some of these students have a tremendous amount of experience. They just haven't been certified in the past. It isn't, many of them are newer, but you've got students there with 10 or 20 years of experience, and they may have a particular area of expertise that they can bring forward when another student has a question about something that maybe we as instructors have less familiarity with that, but some other students says, oh no, we've dealt with that. We deal with that every day, and here's what we found works well.
So John, help us to get started on this. So, you're thinking, okay, I'm convinced that I need to get certified, or at least I need to take advantage of some of the training. What do I do? Where do I go? How is it done?
Oh, yes. So you can start a couple of different ways. Logging on to WQA.org, exploring our training page. You can reach out to me at education@WQA.org, and I can get back to you either via phone call, or we can set up a short Zoom session. And you can register completely online now at WQA.org/training for all of our different courses. And we do have discounted versions of the courses if you wanted to buy a complete package. That is the 3-course series for the CWS, or the 2-course for the CWR with the exam registration. It provides you with a small discount if you enroll in everything all at once. Also saves you the headache of having to enroll in each class individually as we're moving along.
One thing we had thought of earlier was, why not include a little snippet of what it's like for one of the classes? And so if you guys are okay with it, we'll play that now. And this is an example. Maybe, John, if you want to set this up, this is an example from one of the classes.
Absolutely, Wes. Yeah, this one is actually from just last week in our CWS 2 class.
We had a house we were called in to work on where they had basically something like this to take out. It's a high level of iron, whether it was 8-10 milligrams per liter, something like that. And it, in the course of about 2 years, had narrowed the plumbing, the main line, from 1 1/4 inch down to about 3/8 of an inch. Should have grabbed a picture of it, but in those days, that wasn't really what I was focused on. It's mainly just trying to help them straighten it out. But it was surprising what it had done. And in some cases, this process can cause problems for the pressure sensing switch, because pressure sensing switch frequently is connected with 3/8, a piece of 3/8 brass, and it can plug that up so that the pump is it's not sensing the pressure accurately. Either in one case, it doesn't turn on at all, or in the other case, the other example, it doesn't shut off because it doesn't realize that the pressure has reached the cutout point and it should be turning off. This is a diagram showing you a typical chemical feed pump installation. Chemical is injected before the pressure tank, which once again requires shutting down the system. It's wired so that this particular style is wired so that when the pump in the well turns on, it turns on the chemical feed, and it's designed to inject a certain dosage into the water before the pressure tank, then goes through the pressure tank, and to provide adequate contact time for the reaction to take place, it goes through a retention tank or a contactor tank, and then eventually it goes to some sort of a backwashing sand filter. Might also have a carbon filter in there, depending upon what you're doing. So service flow rate. When you're looking at putting in any type of physical filter rather than the water softener, almost without exception, it's going to cause a greater loss of pressure as you're running water through it than the resin. If you look at the two products, almost any filtration media is an irregularly shaped medium, whereas resin is spherical. So when you're looking at this comes into play in a couple of ways. One, for the same size tank, the backwash flow rate is likely to be double or triple what the water softener is. So if the softener is backwashing at 2.5 gallons per minute because you're using a 10-inch diameter tank, and you put in a 10-inch diameter tank with some sort of filter media, you're probably looking at least 5 gallons per minute, maybe 7, maybe even higher than that, depending upon what the medium is you're using.
Okay, so that again is an example of our live instructor-led training. It's online. You log in, and it's Paul. Step us through that whole process. How many weeks is this again? That one attends these classes?
It depends on the course, but for the most part, I would say roughly 15 weeks for the CWS, each of the 3 courses. The installer course is about, I think, 21 weeks, John, isn't that it? Something around that. So that's a little longer, but that's also just one course, and then you're eligible, along with the field experience, to go for the exam.
And Paul, how do you feel it's been going? Because you've been at this for a while now with these live courses. Are you feeling as though we've kind of ironed out the kinks and worked out the bugs, so to speak?
For the most part, yes. I think things are going well. I do try to solicit, as best I can, unbiased feedback when I have a chance to talk to a student. Sometimes I'll see a student at one of the annual conventions or somewhere else. And all the instructors encourage the students, if you see us somewhere, please come up and introduce yourself. Because sometimes when we're teaching the Zoom class, depending upon how many students are on at any given time, it can be difficult to keep track of everyone. But we say, if you do see us in person, we love to chat with you. And if that happens, I try to solicit feedback because we are always looking to improve it so that the experience for the student is the best it can be. So for the most part, I would say the major bugs have been ironed out at this point.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you both. Paul, I want to thank you for your experience and your investment in the industry and your many years of being part of the Water Quality Association, and now as an instructor, bringing all that experience to bear. That's great, John. Your leadership, your experience has been so valuable as well. So thanks to you both for joining us.
Thank you, Wes. It's great being here.
Appreciate you taking the time to interview us, chat with us.
Our WQA tip: you're invited to connect, inspire, and elevate at the 2024 Mid-Year Leadership Conference coming up September 17th through the 19th at a convenient Midwest location near Chicago's O'Hare Airport. Don't miss out on this collaborative, strategic conference for the water treatment industry. It won't be the same without you. Learn more and register at wqa.org/MYLC. Thanks for joining us for the Water Quality Association podcast, bringing you the latest news and insights from the association, our members, and outside experts to help you better serve your customers and grow your business. Learn more about water and water treatment at our consumer website, betterwatertoday.org, and learn more about professional certification, product certification, and how you can become a WQA member at WQA.org. Until next time, this is Wes Bleed. So long from the Water Quality Association.